Hello everyone! Today we're going to discuss Frankenstein, letters 1 through 4 of Volume 1. You might be wondering why the novel Frankenstein, which is about a scientist who will create a living being out of dead body parts, begins with a series of letters a ship's captain sends to his sister as he travels to the North Pole. There are reasons for this. One of them is, I think, simply to generate suspense and interest, to make you wonder, what is this gigantic figure the captain of the ship glimpses in the distance? Is it a human being? Where is it going? And who is the man the captain later takes on board the ship? Why is he chasing after the gigantic figure? Why is he so unhappy? But there are other reasons to begin the novel this way as well. The novel Frankenstein begins with what we call a frame narrative, which is a story that encloses another story, creating a story within a story. In this case, the polar expedition is the frame narrative. The captain of this ship will, in his letters, tell his sister and us the story the stranger he takes on board his ship tells him. The stranger the captain takes on board the ship is Victor Frankenstein, and he will tell the captain how he became a scientist who created a living being, which will be the main story of the novel. But why do this? Why enclose the story of the scientist in this story about the polar expedition? In addition to generating interest and suspense, the captain's letters to his sister insinuate certain ideas in your mind. Remember how the very first short scene of Macbeth with the three witches seemed like it was only there to frighten the audience and catch its interest? But when you looked at it more closely, it actually set up some of the major themes of the play. The polar expedition frame narrative of Frankenstein does the same thing. Without you quite realizing it, it gets you thinking about the ideas and themes that will play out over the course of the rest of the novel. In a sense, it gets you ready to read the rest of the novel. It tells you what to look for and pay attention to as you read the rest of the novel. It's almost like a lens that helps you bring Victor Frankenstein's story into sharper focus. Let's look at a few of the ideas these 4 letters set up. The captain writes to his sister, "This breeze, which has traveled from the regions towards which I am advancing, gives me a foretaste of those icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as the region of beauty and delight." The captain is setting out on a hugely ambitious endeavor. No one has reached the North Pole before. The journey through ice and extreme cold will be extremely dangerous. And there are a lot of indications, as he writes, that when he reaches the North Pole, he will find only frost and desolation. But the captain is convinced, or at least hopeful, that he will instead find beauty and delight. What's immediately set up here is a tension around the outcome of seeking knowledge. Will a risky attempt to add to what humanity knows be worth it? Or will it lead only to desolation, or even to death? The captain is confident that even if his ideas about what he will find at the North Pole are wrong, even if it is desolate, the trip will still be worth it. But supposing all these conjectures to be false, you cannot contest the inestimable benefit which I shall confer on all mankind to the last generation by discovering a passage near the pole to those countries, to reach which at present so many months are requisite, or by ascertaining the secret of the magnet, which, if at all possible, can only be effected by an undertaking such as mine. The captain asserts that no matter what he finds, adding some information about the North Pole to the sum of human knowledge will in the end benefit human beings. But his assertion should also make us wonder whether we should ever be so confident about the value of knowledge. Is it worth taking risks to know something? And is everything worth knowing? There's also an arrogance to the captain, which he basically admits. And now, dear Margaret, do I not deserve to accomplish some great purpose? My life might have been passed in ease and luxury, but I preferred glory to every enticement that wealth placed in my path. The captain is seeking knowledge, but he's also seeking glory. A life of ease and luxury is not good enough for him. He appears to have an implicit sense that he is better than other people, destined for greater things. And as he knows, this voyage is really dangerous, and he's also knowingly risking the lives of the members of his crew. There is in him at least a touch of megalomania. an obsession with his own power, a potential delusion about his own power. And having set out on a journey that most people think way too dangerous to attempt, the captain writes, "I bitterly feel the want of a friend. How would such a friend repair the faults of your poor brother? I am too ardent in execution and too impatient of difficulties. But it is a still greater evil to me that I am self-educated. For the first 14 years of my life, I ran wild on a common, and read nothing but our Uncle Thomas's books of voyages. Now I am 28, and am in reality more illiterate than many schoolboys of 15. It is true that I have thought more, and that my daydreams are more extended and magnificent, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping. And I greatly need a friend who would have sense enough not to despise me as romantic, and affection enough for me to endeavor to regulate my mind." The captain has a crew, but he's paying them. Few people would attempt this expedition otherwise. Very few people have attempted or would attempt this expedition at all. This is the captain's journey, and in a sense, he is very alone. And he has, in a way, been alone his entire life, having dreamed of and planned this perilous expedition by himself since boyhood. This isolation is dangerous itself, as he notes. He has had no one close to him to, as he puts it, regulate his mind. Are his plans too dangerous? Are his ideas about this expedition unrealistic? He doesn't really know. He doesn't have anyone who could tell him otherwise. Finally, this is a small detail, but an important one. He notes, "You may remember that a history of all the voyages made for purposes of discovery compose the whole of our good Uncle Thomas's library. My education was neglected, yet I was passionately fond of reading. These volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased that regret which I had felt as a child on learning that my father's dying injunction had forbidden my uncle to allow me to embark in a seafaring life." His father didn't want him to embark on a seafaring life at all. He's acting against his father's wishes. He doesn't linger on this point, but you will want to keep it in mind. The main story of this novel is of a scientist creating a living being. That's a relationship that parallels the relationship between God and human being, or nature and human being, but it also parallels the relationship between father and son, or parent and child. The relationship between a parent and child is, like the relationship between a scientist and the being he brings to life, a relationship between a creator and creation. Frankenstein is a really intelligent and complex novel. It's a suspenseful and exciting story that delves into huge philosophical ideas. In these first 4 letters, Mary Shelley prepares you for them. She even tells you to keep these ideas in mind as you begin the rest of the novel. Before Victor Frankenstein tells his story, he tells the captain, "You seek for knowledge and wisdom, as I once did. And I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be a serpent to sting you, as mine has been. I do not know that the relation of my misfortunes will be useful to you. Yet, if you are inclined, listen to my tale. I believe that the strange incidents connected with it will afford a view of nature which may enlarge your faculties and understanding." In a way, we, as readers, have been set up to hear Victor Frankenstein's story in the same way the captain has been set up to hear Victor Frankenstein's story. These first 4 letters have set you up to hear a horror story that might enlarge your faculties and understanding.